Hey everybody, welcome to the live stream Q&A. We'll be talking about writing, storytelling, and books today. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. Looking forward to answering some questions today. Oop, got one now. Do you have any tips for writing a first kiss scene? My advice for writing first kisses in stories or anything romantic, truthfully, in stories, is don't make it too perfect. Because what makes a kiss feel real and what makes anything feel real in fiction, truthfully, is not how perfect it is, because life isn't perfect. It's what's the grittiness? What is the imperfections that make it feel like a real first kiss? For example, did the couple go out to have curry right before, and one of their mouths still kind of tastes like curry? Like, that's gross, but it's like actually it's what happens in real life. Or when they lean in for the kiss, did the man forget to shave, and so he has an uncomfortable stubble on there? Or does he have little marks on his neck from shaving, and he cut himself? And like, what are the imperfections of the moment is what I encourage people to incorporate into kiss scenes. Because if it's completely perfect, that's fine and feels like a dream, if you will. But if you want it to feel very real and resonate like a real first kiss, don't just focus on what's beautiful. Don't just focus on the moon in the sky, the water trickling so nice, and it's just you two looking into each other's eyes. Also focus on his aftershave is too strong, or her makeup is smeared. The little imperfections. What's your opinion on the importance of having good grammar for writing a book? Grammar is important there's multiple stages to writing. There's the first draft, there's the revision process, and then there's the proofing process. Grammar mostly comes in handy for the proofing process, when you're polishing and you're getting ready to show it to people and make it presentable. Because the thing is, people will be bothered by typos and will be bothered by poor grammar. And so that's something you want to take care of at the end. That is an important step, but it is also the most mechanical and most common in terms of skill sets. A lot of people can do proofing, and you can even pay people to do proofing. Not as many people, however, can draft and revise a good story. And so I think a lot of the time people will look at grammar as a sign of good writing, and what they're doing is they're completely ignoring the first part, which is the drafting and the revising, the telling of a compelling arc and the building of compelling characters, and all those things are not tied to your ability with grammar. And so those are two different parts of the writing process. We tend to overvalue grammar because it's obvious and everyone can see it, and we tend to actually undervalue the other things. So if we see a really well-told story with great characters and stuff, but the grammar is poor, it'll be written off, even though they've accomplished the much harder thing. And so both are important, because a dull story with flat characters is not going to succeed if it's even if it is like perfect from a grammar standpoint. But likewise, a really great story with great characters is not going to succeed if it hasn't been polished at the end. And so if you struggle with grammar, the first thing I want to tell you is that doesn't make you a bad writer, it just makes you a bad grammarian. It makes you a bad proofreader. And that's a skill you can work on. But if you want to write novels and you really do struggle with grammar, you can still always pay someone else to proofread for you. It's better if you can do it yourself, and it's good to learn as much of it as you can. But the harder skill and more important skill to develop is the ability to draft and revise good characters, good arcs, and because that's the harder skill to come by. I want to ask how to get over the fear that someone will steal my story idea and use it. The biggest thing to understand with that is ideas are the initial idea of your story, and like certain parts of it are kind of the least important part of your story. What's much more important is how you execute the story and how you bring the characters to life on the page. And so even if someone were to take a general idea from your story, they would need to go and write it ahead of you, write it well enough for it to get published and picked up by an agent, sent to a publisher, and it's an unlikely thing for someone to go and steal something from you and then go and actually make it successful and spread away from you. And even if they do, they're not going to succeed because they stole your idea. They're going to succeed because they wrote and executed very well upon your idea. And so I just don't think it happens as often as people think. And so I say, don't worry too much. How many chapters should I build my character's personality over? As many as you want. Your character's personality should grow and evolve as the story goes along, or maybe not the personality, but their characterization should grow. Something interesting I've noticed in some stories, for example, I was reading Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson, and one of my criticisms of it initially is I didn't like the characters at first. In the first third of the novel, the characters are very flat to me. They're flat. They're not very engaging. I didn't care for them. But then the characters go through life shifts and challenges and overcome them, and we see other sides of them, and we see them develop a little bit and grow a little bit. And then, so about a third of the way in, I found myself generally liking the characters because suddenly they had more dimension to them. They were more fleshed out. Like, for example, Vin, the main character, she is an abused, poor, downtrodden street rat at the beginning. But then about a third of the way in, she has been brought up from the street. She's now working with Kelsier's crew, and she's burgeoning with power, and she's developing powers, and is going to go undercover with the nobles. And there's so much more to her context and personality and character that have been explored that I liked her then. I didn't like her at first. Just like I didn't like Kelsier at first, who's kind of that charismatic lead. He felt like a very basic, flat, charismatic lead, but then more mistakes and insecurities get experienced by him in the story, and that fleshes him out a little bit more. And so I came to like them. And so that happens over the course of the story, and it continues to happen over the course of the story. I think it's better if you can show the character's depth right away, because it's better to like a character right away. And you can do that by showing contrasting parts of who they are. But yeah, you develop your character throughout the story. And there's no, don't think about it as oh, how many chapters do I got to devote to this? Just to use the events of the story to flesh out the character and build out different sides of them. How do I write a good flashback scene? I would say there's not too much that goes into a good flashback scene per se. I think the trick of flashbacks is more of the transitions into and out of them than what they actually contain. So as long as you have a good trigger for why we're flashing back and thinking about this and remembering this particular event, as long as you have that firmly established and you bring us out of it clearly, then what you do in the flashback doesn't bother me too much. The only thing I would say you should try to avoid is making the flashback too long or awkwardly long. You want to have it be, you don't want the reader to lose track of the narrative. And so if you do a flashback and you're stuck there for chapters and chapters, and then we come back to the present and there was no indicator that was going to happen, and then you maybe do another shorter flashback and it just seems so random, that's going to be hard to follow. And so I would say consistency with flashbacks is good, and having clear transitions between the two is what's most important. Have you read Agatha Christie? I have. I've read one or two Hercule Poirot, however it's pronounced. It's like Murder on the Orient Express. And I've read And Then There Were None. And then another Hercule Poirot, whatever how it is. I've read about 3 of her books. Her style's pretty good. It's very bare bones, conveying of information, setting up a mystery for you to potentially solve. I think Murder on the Orient Express is generally solvable, not 100%, but you can get the gist of it figured out with the clues she gives. So I think it's a very fair fight. And Then There Were None. The twist at the end pushes the reality I feel like a good mystery. At least I haven't read too many, so don't think this is gospel. But I think a good mystery is one that you can solve with the information that is provided you in the clues. But you also have to indicate to the reader what level of realistic the story is going to be. And so And Then There Were None, the twist at the end was just a little outlandish for the explanation for what was presented to me in the story. So I think she is just on the edge. It is potentially predictable, but not quite. I don't know. I think Murder on the Orient Express, though, I figured out the broad gist of the twist, but not the specifics. The specifics are damn near impossible to figure out. Do you know any books about writing that are helpful for those looking for more tips? I think the most important thing for improving as a writer is reading and writing, just in general, reading fiction, writing fiction, if that's what your genre is, fiction. But there are a few books you can read to help with writing. Don't think that you have to read a bunch of books on writing, because that's not the most important part. Think of writing advice like my videos as just being a way to augment and to enrich your efforts as you read books and you write. But some books I love, I keep it pretty simple. On Writing by Stephen King, pretty common suggestion. Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott. If nothing else, at least look up her chapter Shitty First Drafts by Anne Lamott. Shitty First Drafts. It's online for free. At least read that because it helps you get comfortable with the idea of writing a poor first draft. And then also there's elements of style by Strunk and White, which is a little over prescriptive in terms of grammar. It's potentially a little outdated in some ways, but it's a good way to polish your sentences. Don't read it as God's gospel truth of what good writing needs to be, especially because it focuses more on the grammar than the actual content of the characters in the story. But it can be a good one to look at as well, particularly for the editing phase. Not for your drafting phase, for your editing phase. What's a good college degree that focuses on writing? Truthfully, I think a good one that's emerging now is professional writing is appearing in some places because you can take some creative writing courses in it, but it also teaches you to write professionally and in like business contexts and for organizations. Because if you want a career in writing, odds are you're gonna have to write for a business or an organization or a marketing agency or something like that. And so learning not just how to write creatively, like through creative writing courses, which you should take because that can do wonders for you and other types of writing as well. But you should also be learning how to apply writing to business context so you can actually get a job and make a living. Because once again, I am a copywriter for a marketing agency. That's how I make a living. And my creative writing background has made me much better at it than I would have been if I hadn't been a creative writer. But I also had to learn how to apply my writing elsewhere. And I double majored in communications and writing. And so communications helped me get into more professional contexts. So professional writing is an emerging degree that's kind of making writing more marketable. So I recommend that if you can find one. If you go with a straight creative writing degree, that's fine. That's what I did. I would just say pair it with a minor or a major that's a little more tangible, like marketing, like business, communication, something like that. And that will help you get an internship at a marketing agency or a business, because businesses need writers more than ever. Because right now, it's called content marketing is what's kind of taking over. Is everyone's online and everyone wants the attention of customers. So how do you get attention? You get attention by creating entertaining, helpful content, stuff like that. And so businesses, if they want to be seen and they want to develop relationships with people, they need to create content and give it away for free. And so they need to pay people to do that. So there's a lot more opportunities right now for writers than there has been in quite a while. There was the decrease in journalism, but now there's the increase of business writing. And there's other types of of writing careers as well. You can be a technical writer, writing manuals and stuff like that. You can be proofreaders. There's a lot of different stuff you can do. All right, guys, thank you all so much for being on the live stream this week. I look forward to answering your questions next week as well. I do this every week at 2 p.m. Central Time on Saturdays. And I hope to see you guys here next week with some more questions. Everyone have a good week.